Hi guys, and welcome to another Brushmaster video. Continuing on with our colour theory series, today we're going to look at blue. Blue is a great colour. It can bring so many things to something in terms of something being colder. It can also be something we really associate with really good things, like superheroes have a lot of blue normally. Ultramarines blue. It very much gives that sort of feeling. But what can we do within blue if we want to make our blue more interesting? As you can see here from the colour wheel, the perfect complement to blue is orange, and you've also got a triad of red and yellow. This we see an awful lot in things in the world, and certainly within miniature painting. Again, thinking ultramarines, the blue armour, the red trim, or rather red capes and stuff, and yellow gold. We see that a lot. But we've also got these two other colours. Now, blue is a pure colour, so it's not made up of colours. But in other instances, what we've done, like for instance, if we look at green, we usually say, green is made up of blue and yellow. So we could sort of look at these two colours as being sort of connected to blue. I know that they work very well with blue, and we'll explain that as we go along. So on the palette here, the first thing I've done here, this is a progression from medium blue, and I've done a very standard way of just adding black for shadows and white for highlights. Now, one of the areas where blue is really different to a lot of other colours is that by adding white, it actually makes really nice colours. And blue works really well if we just add white. Unlike other colours that tend to look very washed out and stark, if you go in certainly from a slightly darker blue, adding whites actually produces really nice tones, and we see these tones a lot in miniature painting. So black and white with blue, in my opinion, usually works okay. But what can we do with the other colours? Now, with the perfect complement, we've got orange, and as I said, I've got medium blue, and I've got a light rust colour. And as you expect, which we've seen before, we normally get a browny tone. But the colour I've chose here, this orange, is very light and it's got white in it. So now it's going more greenish because it's more of a yellowy orange. So now that's turning the blue more into a greenish tone. If we add a little bit more blue into that, we actually get a much nicer tone, I think. Probably sort of getting closer to sort of incubi darkness, something like that. That's definitely more towards incubi darkness, deep sea blue, deep sea blue rather, very much a greeny blue there. And we can continue adding oranges into that, and we'll end up more with these sort of greenish brownish tones. And if we start then moving towards pale yellow, we start getting these really nice greener tones. They still look like they've got that hint of blue in them, but as I've said before, when we do this, we start heading more into colours that I would call like French blue, French grey. Really nice tones, beautiful tones to work with. But again, this blue can be incorporated into it. This tone here that we got to is very blue, and these tones would work very well with it. So the other two colours we've got in the triad are red and yellow. Now we'll tackle red first. I think we've done this when we did the red one, but what we'll see with blue and red, if we look on the colour wheel, it's going to produce a violet or a purple. And we can now go down that path of making different types of purple. So On the red path, I made a very red purple. So on this video, we'll go down more down the blue, a dark blue, violet, purple. So as you can see, that colour itself is beautiful. Really, I love that sort of colour. And if we keep adding the blue to this now, we're going to get more bluish violet shades. So we're going to get a little bit lighter, but then we would have to be starting to add in a lighter colour. So again, I'm going to go to my pale yellow, which works very nice with this colour indeed. And we start getting more of this, more of a sort of, it looks like it's heading more to like a faded sort of denim colour, or a darker denim colour, I say, my mistake. And if we carry on down that path, we just start producing these really nice faded blues. They're very colourful. They're really nice. But this is what we're getting when we're mixing blue and red, and then basically yellow and white to lighten. Now we could have just added white or ivory. That would have worked just as well too. But again, it's just a beautiful progression of colours. And it's all become, because we've mixed our blue with the red, then we've added more blue, and we've worked that way. So we're still using that blue, but we're using the colours on the colour wheel to try and change it and give it different nuances. And the other thing, I don't know if I've explained this a lot as well, is that there's nothing wrong as well with using standard blues. And again, depending on your environment, you can mix these other shades up as glazes and just glaze those into certain sections as nuances, as just different tones of colour in certain areas and certain environments. So let's have a look now what happens if we add a very sort of mid-green to this. So this is the blue and the green, and we're now getting these really rich bluey green tone. And again, if we start maybe adding yellow in, it's quite greenish, but this has come from that blue. We're now into a really rich green. So let's try adding a bit of blue, a bit more blue into that, so we can keep it bluish. Yeah, it's got a bit more blue in it. If we go down now with our pale yellow, yeah, these are the sorts of colours that I love. These are the sort of colours that I find really cool. This is like, is it Cyberite green from Games Workshop maybe? We're certainly getting more into that sort of area with this path of colour. And again, here we go. Definitely it's heading to more towards bluey greens, jade greens, you know, whatever we want to call them, but really attractive, warm, nice colours. Okay, so what have we got left? So the other colour we were going to use was violet, but we've really used violet already. The other colour we've got that we haven't used yet is yellow, but by adding green, we are sort of doing that already, because obviously blue and yellow is just going to make green. So how can we make that a little bit different? So if we add yellow to this now, we are going to get a green tone. Let's try and keep it more to the blue tone. So now we're going to get, like I said, we're going to get a green. A blue is very similar to this green. But what happens now if we take a bit of our orange and we'll add some white to that to make it fairly light, and now we start incorporating other colours in from the colour wheel. So now we're heading down to more khaki type greens, more of a military type green. And let me clean my brush first this time. So instead of using pale yellow, if we take our light rust and make that orange very, very light, very white, now we can use the orange in there and we start getting very different types of tone. Very much more military type greens. And what's interesting now, we did orange early on, but if we do it now, instead of making a brown, and we add this very light watery orange, which again, this colour here, you could just add sunny skin tone. Sunny skin tone would work just as well. Then again, very similar colour we get as a starting shade there. And if we now start adding in lighter colours like pale yellow, again, we just start getting these really beautiful colours. Again, very similar to these other colours, but a slightly different tone. And just by varying what we're adding, the amounts we're adding, we can start really mixing and getting some interesting tones out of this blue. I mean, a lot of these, one of the things with blue is whatever you add from the colour wheel, like an orange, a light orange, obviously the yellow, pale yellow, things like that, the green itself, a lot of it is going to go greenish. But the other way to keep the blue, and this is a bit like when we done red, sometimes if you want something to stand as blue, maybe you just highlight with blue. And the way you can do this is by your starting colour, taking the blue and then adding a much darker colour like a violet. So here I've added violet, right, which gives us this beautiful dark bluey violet, but we could also add just a little tiny bit of black to darken it up. And then we could be starting with this sort of colour, which is like a really rich imperial blue. It's just a gorgeous colour, you know. And to lighten that up, we can just add more blue, which is going to give us a really nice next stage colour. But again, it's still a really nice, rich, deep blue. So we're getting into like a really lovely progression of blues here. I'll just get a bit more blue on my palette. And if we just keep adding blues to this, we're basically working our way here to the original blue, which is about there. And as we know, we're on a purple path here. What happens now? So if I want to keep that in that sort of reddish sphere, right? But I know if I add red in now, it's just going to make it even more purple. So a bit like what we did with orange, a little good trick for you here is if you take your red, just take a little bit of red, you take a decent amount of white, and we make a very light pink. So we're still using the red, but we're now adding in white with it as well. And then we start getting a very different type of blue. And this is going to work beautifully in this transition. So we are sort of making a purple, but not quite. If that makes sense? So by adding pink, you see these colours now start turning more to sort of lilac tones. It's hard for me to describe the colour, but it's beautiful. It's really a lovely colour. But it's something very important to remember when you're highlighting that, you know, you don't have to highlight with just one tone. Now I've probably gone too much red there now. So I've run out of white. But as you can see, this progression is different to this one, it's different to this one. They're all fairly different still. The important thing is, like I keep stressing in these videos, is experiment with your colour wheel, because all we've done here, this is why I say it's colour theory but different, right? All we've done is taken one colour and we've just used these equal space colours around the colour wheel to produce different colours from our mother colour. So that's it for today, guys. That's blue. I hope you enjoyed it. The next video, I think we're going to try and look at some of the secondary or tertiary colours and see what we can get out of those, because we get some really different tones out of those because they're not pure colours. So the mix-in is a little bit more unknown for what we're going to get. Anyway, thanks for joining me, guys, and I'll see you next time.